Well, good morning, magandang umaga, and welcome to today's episode of My PI Dream. Today, we have a hopefully exciting episode for you, especially for those of you who are interested in irrigation systems and a better way to manage and control your irrigation systems. As you remember, in some earlier videos, we explained how we do the unconventional installation of irrigation systems in the Philippines. Of course, in North America and other places around the world, it's a standard installation, but it's kind of new in the Philippines, and we wanted to show those of you who are interested in doing something like that how you can easily install irrigation systems. Well, today we're going to talk about a challenge that you have with monitoring automatic sprinkler system type systems and a way that you can mitigate some of the problems that you might have with that. I think you'll find it very interesting with a new product that we are going to install and test today. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get today started. So without further delay, let's get today's video underway. Alright, now before I go down into the basement and show you the new toy of the week, or the new toy of the month, or whatever, I want to explain to you something. You probably have a question when I made a comment in the intro segment this morning about challenges, and you're probably saying to yourself, challenges, James? How can you have challenges when you have an automated system? Well, you know, we installed the Rycote automated irrigation system here in our backyard. And it pretty much does everything on its own. Once you have a schedule set up, you basically allow it to go free, and it does it. It waters when it's supposed to, it doesn't water, or puts the watering schedule on hold when there's an indication that there's going to be some rain, and so that you save water basically. And it doesn't water in the middle of the raining event or an upcoming raining event. So it kind of measures and calculates. It has a lot to do with conservation of water. Now, sometimes what happens if you live in a part of the Philippines, or pretty much, I think, all around the Philippines, where we have spotty rain, or what I call micro weather systems. And I don't know if that's a technical term, if that's a real term or not, but that's my term for today. Nessa is always telling me I'm inventing things. I'm inventing words, and I'm inventing. And I'm inventing.
I have a dictionary.
Yeah, she has a Jamesism.
For him, yes, for him.
Well, anyway, when I speak about micro weather systems, what I'm talking about is maybe it's raining right here over the top of Villa Feliz, but maybe 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers down the road, there's no rain. Or the opposite, maybe it's raining 5 or 10 kilometers down the road, and it's dry and it's sunny right here. So our intelligent irrigation system, which is the Rycote, and I will leave a link at the end of today's video for an earlier video that we did for that specific system. What it does, its intelligence is based upon gathering information from local weather stations. Now, I believe the local weather station that it makes its determining factor upon is down in San Juan, which is maybe 30-40 kilometers from here. We don't have any local weather stations that anybody is sharing the information right here in the local area of Lipa. So what I decided to do is go ahead and install my own weather station, and the weather station is from a company called Ambient Weather, and we'll talk more about the specific model when we go down into the basement and we do a box opening. Well, what that allows us to do is be more accurate on our prediction of weather based on the local area right here. So what we're going to do, we're literally going to be a weather station, just like you see on the television. And the weatherman is on there, and he's showing what the local weather is in his area. Well, we're going to be the local weatherman for Lipa right here, since we don't see anybody else who has one of these type of weather stations and is sharing that on the internet with the world. And we'll talk more about that. So anyway, if we do that, we can have more accurate forecasts of our local area right here, which will send more accurate information to our Rycote, which is our irrigation system, and it will be able to make better determinations on when it needs to water the yard and not. Because we've been in the backyard before. How many times have I said to you, And oh, it's raining, and the irrigation system is doing a watering cycle in the backyard, and I have to manually turn it off. Well, we want to avoid that as much as possible. So let's go ahead and retire down to the basement where I actually have the box. We'll open the box up, we'll talk about some of the components, and then we'll move on to the installation. So, hey, let's head on down to the basement. Now that we're down here inside the basement, it's much easier to show you rather than talk about it. So what we have here is the Ambient Weather Wi-Fi Osprey solar-powered wireless weather station. And this particular model is the WS-2902B. Now there is another one. If you look online, there's a WS-2902A. I'm not sure the difference between the A and the B. If I have an opportunity to do some research, I'll try to insert it in this part of the video right here during post-editing. So anyway, this is what you're going to receive. You'll receive a box like this, not the stuff on the top. These are optional items, and we'll talk about them in just a moment. So let's look, before we open the box, at what we anticipate to be inside the box. We should have a display console. We should also have an outdoor sensor, and you see there's some mounting hardware right here, basically a U bracket, a universal bracket for the mounting hardware. We should have that in there. And what you don't see on here, we should have a power supply. It's a DC power supply. This unit, this console right here, the display console, uses a 5-volt DC power supply along with some batteries. And I believe the batteries are installed inside there to be able to keep the memory of anything that you've done with configuration. Now, if you look over to the side over here, there's some optional items inside that you can purchase separate from this, which we did. So you'll see there is a sensor, and these sensors are air quality sensors here, and I actually purchased one. This is the PM25. You have a PM25 and you have a PM25IN. What the IN stands for is inside, the PM25 with no indicator on the other side of the number, of the model number, is for outdoors. And an air quality sensor is basically that. It is going to measure your air quality. You know, during certain times of the year, you might have a lot of pollen that you would like to be aware of. Here in the Philippines, specifically here in Lipa, you're going to want to know about volcano ash that's inside the air. So we thought this would be extremely helpful for us. I also purchased an additional display console. You can get a separate one. I think you can get 2 or 3. I don't know what the max is. I'll try to look inside the manual and find out. But what I would like to do, I would like to be able to monitor from right down here inside the basement. Also upstairs, I would like to be able to monitor as well. Also, what we have here is, this is the rain spike. You might be wondering, what is a rain spike? Well, the rain spike is basically, it's something to keep the birds away. You don't want the birds interfering. Inside the sensor here, you have a water cup. And the water cup is going to measure the amount of rain that you've accumulated over a certain amount of time. You don't want the birds getting inside there and drinking all the water that's inside that it's using for its calculation. And you don't want birds to interfere with any of the components on the top of your sensor. So I went ahead and purchased that. Like I said, we have a lot of birds because where we're going to be mounting this, by the raised bed garden, there are always birds, and we want to make sure. And this little box right here, that's actually where the power supply, and we can open that up real quick and show you that. Now this is the power supply that came with the optional display console right here. There should be another one inside the box. Well, let's go ahead and open up the box and look at the components that we just talked about. Of course, inside the box you have a manual that will help you set up and do any calibration you'll need. We have the display console right here. This additional one, very similar to the one we have over there. We have a weather speed sensor. This will spin on the top and measure the wind speed. We have a weather vane. This will give us the direction of our wind. We have the big unit right here, which is the main part of the sensor right here. Inside here, a cup will go inside here. The cup is over here. It will fit inside here, and it will store the water that's dropped so we can see the accumulated rain that we have. There's a little bubble on the top for a level so that we have this properly leveled. And let's see, what else do we have? Oh, we have a battery compartment right here. And we have the solar panel underneath this little label right here. We have our additional power supply and the bracket. This is that universal mounting bracket that I was talking about. Let's go ahead and put the components together and hopefully get this operational very soon. Now, one more thing I'd like to mention that I didn't mention as I was identifying parts inside the box when we opened the box is there's another component inside. It's a little handy dandy stand, and this is for your display console. Now, your display console will be able to fit in a vertical position using this stand. If you don't want to use the stand, what you can do is on the back there's a couple of legs that you can open up so you can set it like this on a tabletop, or of course if you want to put anchors inside the wall, you can actually mount this directly on a wall. Here's your DC 5-volt input from your power supply, which is inside this box right here. Okay, I believe that is all, with the exception of there's a couple of tools inside here that you'll need to do the assembly. Now, looking through the instructions over here, it seems like the setup is rather easy. Now, the first part of our setup for the sensor array is to install the wind vane. The wind vane will sit on this little shaft right here. It has a flat side that will match with the flat side inside. If you have a precision screwdriver, Phillips, you will use this to go ahead and secure it to this shaft. Now, step 2 of the installation is to install the wind cups. The wind cups will be installed on the opposite shaft over here, and you'll notice that this shaft doesn't have any flat side. You use the same precision screwdriver to go ahead and secure it to the shaft. Let's go ahead and do that now. Now, something you'll notice is this actually spins very freely as opposed to the wind vane, and that's by design. It's engineered like this, and the reason is you don't want the wind direction easily continuously making updates from the smallest amount of wind. You want it to have just a little bit of friction on there. And the opposite being, you want this to always be able to go as freely as possible, spin as freely as possible, to be able to get the most accurate wind speed. Okay, let's go on to the next step. Now, the next step is going to be installing the mounting hardware for where the sensor itself connects to a mounting pole out in your yard. We'll go ahead and install this. Now that we got the universal mounting bracket installed onto this bracket right here, which connects to the sensor array, we're going to go ahead and install the cup for the rain collection, and then what we'll do is we'll install the batteries, and then what we'll do is we have to find some type of a mounting pole for this to mount to. I think you're going to find our selection today to be a little bit unique and unusual from what most people will be doing for installing their sensor out in their backyard. Now, the rain gauge funnel is as simple as setting it inside the sensor and twisting it to the right to lock into place. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to install 2 AA batteries into the battery compartment. Now, according to the instructions, when we install both of the batteries, there's an LED indicator right here. It should turn on for 4 seconds and then flash once every 16 seconds. So that's what we're going to be looking out for proper operation. Now, before we install the sensor on the pole, I want you to see right here, there is a north pointing arrow right here, and that's going to be for us to line up the sensor itself in the proper orientation, north, south, east, and west. This is important because this is what's going to be reporting for your wind direction when you're looking at the wind vane and other instrumentation on this device. Alright, so now that we have the unit all assembled, it's ready to go outside again, and we're going to go ahead and mount it on our very interesting mounting pole. Let's head on out. Alright, so we're going to pause for a moment before we continue doing the segment of installation out in the backyard. We are in the Philippines and it is rainy season, so this is to be expected. Alright, well, it stopped raining. That was one of those microcells that I was talking about, the micro weather patterns that came through here. It probably didn't rain down in San Juan where the other reporting station is, or maybe it did. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm going to use for a mounting pole. Imaginative, to say the least. All right, let's go ahead and go back to the area where we are planning on mounting our weather station. Now, the idea is to mount it back here somewhere integrated with our raised bed garden. And why do I want to do it back here? Well, you should be away from the house. You should be away from your house. They tell you there's a calculation inside the instruction manual about the size of your house and how far it needs to be away from the house depending on the height of your house. But this is going to be fine back here. We are quite a distance back. And you can see it's pretty open here, so we'll be able to get all the wind speed and wind direction should be calculated just fine back here. Now we have to figure out whether we want to mount it in the center, which is going to be really difficult for accessibility to the side, and I'm not going to be able to mount it to the poles, the existing poles right here, because each one of my poles have the dragon fruit. Remember, I'm using the corner poles for a support for all my dragon fruit all the way around, but we might be able to do something or get very close to it without disturbing the dragon fruit. Now, the imaginative part. What am I going to use for a pole? Well, I think you probably see right here what my choice is going to be. I'm going to use bamboo. It's not steel, it's not aluminum, it's not PVC, but it will match with this, and it won't look so obvious having a cold piece of steel or something like that sticking out in the backyard. But it will be obvious. The electronic device on the top is going to kind of stick out like a sore thumb, but that's okay. I think it will be just fine. So that's the object we're going to be using today for our support pole. And we're going to do this in just a little bit. It's actually lunch. By the time the rain stopped, the time got us to our lunch period. So I'm going to go grab a bite to eat, and we'll be back out here and we'll install our weather station. Alright, so after careful consideration and looking, I decided to go the way I wasn't planning on going, and going in the very center of the garden. It will also provide a center support for the center pole that's inside for the roof area. So the sensor unit is mounted. I used my compass on my iPhone to give me a northerly direction, so it is pointing to the north, which is due that way. So we have it. I didn't do a permanent install. And it will never be a permanent install because it's just in soil. I haven't backfilled because I want to make sure that the bubble is leveled properly, but I want to see if I can get some readings back on this. So I have it temporarily in place right now. The next thing to do is to sync up the display console. The display console being this unit right here, which we're getting a little bit of rain again out here. The display console with the sensor. And the way that you do that, according to the instructions, is you plug this in first with the DC power supply. Then you put in the 3 batteries inside the back, and then after so much time it should synchronize up. They recommend when you do this first initial synchronization, you be 5 to 10 feet away from the sensor array up there. I can't get quite that close because that's about as far as my extension cord goes back here right now. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to do that. We'll see how this works. Alright, well, it looks like we have successful synchronization. I think the way it works is when you first plug it into the 5 volts, it's going to go ahead and do a synchronization in the background. But to save the synchronization between this unit and the weather station itself up on the top of the raised bed garden, the batteries will retain that information for the connection. So I believe we can go ahead and disconnect the DC power supply from the back, bring it in. So you can see, I don't know if you can or not, it's kind of hard to see like this, but it actually is recording. I see the temperature right now is in Fahrenheit, it's 93.6. Let's see, it has a wind speed of 0, which I'm looking, and it's not even turning up on the top right now. And rain is 0 because it hasn't collected any of the rain from today. And it's showing the relative pressure is in 29.9. There's actually a couple of settings you can do for the barometric pressure. It has to do with one that's relative and one that has to do with absolute. Relative is mainly set for the relationship with the sea level. That seems to be more accurate according to what I read. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring this inside and see if we can continue to monitor. I just saw the little cups on the top turn a little bit, and I see 0.2 mile per hour, so it's actually doing well. We just want to go inside to make sure that the distance, the RF from out here, will reach into the basement. Now, once you've got your display console synchronized up with your sensor, you're good inside the house. If that's all you want is to see this inside your house and never worry about sharing that anywhere else or seeing it on the web on other devices, you're good to go. But if you want to travel and you want to look at all this information that's being reported here from your sensor on your smart device, on your tablet, on your smartphone, on your computer or laptop, you're going to have to connect this to the internet. And the way you do that is very simple. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to download an application called AWTNET. But before you do this, you also need to register your device with AmbientWeather.net. And that information that's on the back, you'll have a MAC address. You'll take that MAC address to use when you're doing your registration of your device on AmbientWeather.net. Once you have that account, and we need to connect this up to your local router inside your house on your network, then we'll be able to pass information back and forth. So let's go ahead and open up the application. And the application is going to look like this right here. Now, once you are on AmbientWeather.net and log into your account, all the information that's being displayed on your display console will also be displayed with updates about every few seconds here on the website. So again, this is very handy if you are away and you want to see all the information. And you can set up everything here just like you do on your display console, whatever units of measurement that you want. All right, so now we have it in both places. Now the ambient weather station has a lot more capabilities, but we're not going to go into those today to keep today's video as brief as possible. But a lot of it has to do with configuration, a lot of it has to do with sharing that information with places like Wonderground and Weather Cloud. It will even integrate with your Alexa device as well as your Google device that you might have. And there are many smart devices out there that you can do integration with. As we add the optional items later, and we do our integration with those other sharing resources, we'll try to update you, or I'll try to update you on some of the information to see how well that's going. Because remember, the primary objective of today's video was to show this device right here and show how it can integrate and give us more accurate readings for our local irrigation system using the Rycote, and we'll report back on that later. Well, now it's time to close for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you found it informative. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up, please share, and if you have not subscribed, just click on that little MPID dream heart in the bottom right hand side of your screen. You will be subscribed and you'll be notified the next time I upload a new video. So until such time, you have a wonderful and blessed day. If you enjoyed enjoyed today's episode and you would like to see more just like these, just click on one of the helpful links over to your right and you might be able to pick up on some good information on DIY projects, how to, or if you are interested in moving to the Philippines and building, you'll find answers there as well.